First of all, I would like to repeat my promise that I gave to you and the interpreters. We shall be able to finish a little bit earlier than in the program. I have almost sworn it. In order to give some conclusions, that is not simple at all. It would be pretentious. That's why I would convey some considerations after the debates we have enjoyed, and I have good hope that from what we have heard and what we have noted during the debates, that we shall be able to send you a resume, a summary of these debates in 3 languages. The first conclusion the half-time of the Latvian presidency has passed in a very successful way. It is a European member state that has been able to perform its duties with great success. The second conclusion, the social dialogue in Latvia, in a sense, in the direct meaning of the word, the dialogue between the employers and the employees, and also at the EU level, in the third work group, that this dialogue is done very well in Latvia. As to the Latvian presidency, I appreciate it. I value very highly the efforts that the Latvian government exerts so that we would be able to speak in one voice with the social partners and also speak about the coming events in respect of the environment and also sustainable development. We have to appreciate the efforts, and also we heard it from the parliamentary secretary of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We cannot give very precise answers, for example, from the Minister of Social Affairs, how to avoid unjust, unfair competition. I think that the Minister could not take the question because there is no government position on this question. As to the investments, the title of our meeting, I will remind you of it. I will give it in French. It sounds very poetic in French. For social investment plan in Europe, I am certain that the EU has solidarity, but perhaps not. But please think about this question, both on behalf of the Secretariat and other parties. We need to react. Because we need to have good hope. It is the same as the good hope. Also, the Prime Minister spoke about it. We need investments that would create qualitative jobs. We should have an investment plan. If we support this investment plan that proceeds from Juncker's plan, unfortunately we have to establish that this plan is insufficient. We need to underscore that in the words of Janos Vertes, the USA establishes new jobs, but Europe doesn't. Unfortunately, he didn't really give the figures how much the the United States have invested to achieve this growth and how much the EU has invested. We haven't got true economic governance of the EU. We haven't got an opportunity to create more and more money. Obviously, the US have it. We have our own monetary policy, but economically, this policy doesn't really work. That is the second conclusion. A number of other questions that were touched upon: how to develop competitive businesses. For this, we need to review the energy costs for companies and what are the labor costs for them. I also said this to the journalists during the break. We must become competitive. We must lower labor costs. The truth is, in my country, we cut the minimal wage by 25%, but we didn't get any success. The crisis became grave and much graver. Scandinavian countries have the highest wages and they are most competitive. Partly in Belgium, partly in France, it's the same situation. So it'd be a mistake to think that if we make the workforce poorer, we can make progress. And as to the maternity leave, I don't think we got a very convincing answer from Ms. Zane Kalniņa. I'm an optimist. I believe it is better to work at a new document than continue to work at a document that we cannot agree upon. We hope that this will be done. I said so to the lady from the Minister of Foreign Affairs. But these are issues that are being solved in the Council and in Parliament. And Peteris could also exert some influence because he's got a very good relationship there, and this dialogue works in Latvia. I think he could also do it, and also Mr. Gobiņš could do his best to solve these issues, to work out a new proposal, proposals that would be based on the proposals expressed by the Parliament as we saw it in our declaration. In order to sum up, I was just thinking, when I listen to the debates, very often we speak about competition, competitiveness, that it doesn't work in Europe because Europeans have become lazy. We should know, for those who don't, that over this decade, labor productivity has been growing. It has been constantly growing. And we established the same as poverty has been growing. Perhaps it should be solved at the Congress by the trade unions. We need to demand that redistribution of wealth should be more just among member states, among regions in the EU, if we wish to continue to make progress. We also mentioned the question of Russia. Mr. Gorbinch mentioned it. That is a question that is very important for all of us. It's a concern. We have had 60 years of peace in Europe. Of course, if we exclude the tragedy in Yugoslavia. This was guaranteed by the EU with all its shortcomings, but the EU has got very many positive aspects. But Russia's problem is a responsibility for this development and also the fear that dominates in some regions and also in some of the bordering countries is justified. This is a responsibility for all. That is a concern of the EU, not just to look for the guilty party, but to look into the future. And I believe that the future lies in development, where we develop good neighborhood relations with the neighborhood countries, including Russia. Well, Greece is in a periphery situation, and the situation is not very pleasant. However, I believe that it cannot be improved by forcing people to do something that would change a hostile atmosphere, the way it has been happening over the last decades. I remember from my people that they criticize the Turkish people over every meal. It is necessary, as far as possible, to establish a good neighborhood relations. Russia is a big neighbor, and perhaps we need to support whatever is left over from the civil society and shape democracy in Russia and try to find a solution somehow to establish a good relationship, not to promote a hostile relationship and isolate this country. If we look at the history of Europe over the last half of the century, we see that there have been tensions, and very often it has been cause for a war, not always among the same countries. The last one was Germany against others. They were the English against the French, the English and the French against the English and the French against the French, and so on. We are in a Europe that guarantees peace, and this peace should last. We must continue to guarantee it. It will happen if we try to develop a relationship where that are based on a good neighborhood principle. If we speak about the role of trade unions, I've discussed it with Mrs. Karnit and her excellent analysis. It is true that we need to change, we need to adapt. we cannot remain the way we are, like a mass social organization, which would mean that we must convince the employers that they should become trade union members. We must keep our word, and also we must make the employer organizations keep their words. We have joint interests in the face of the differences. As to EESC, it is important that we get involved in a dialogue with a third group. We have mentioned it a number of times today. Quite a good part of the employers confirm that they need to participate in the social dialogue. Dear ladies and gentlemen, this is what I can offer by way of summing up. Before I announce that we are closing, I would like to say thank you to the participants, Adriana, Peter Skrigers, and others. It seems to me that everything was excellent in the organization of this meeting. Of course, he was not alone, as always. Also, members of our secretariat that worked a lot at it. Susan was ill a month ago, and a month ago one of them was ill too. And another one of us had fallen ill too. I hope, Margaret, that you are enjoying good health now. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for your work. And I would also like to say thank you to the interpreters, and they can really see that we keep our promises as trade union people. I enjoy your stay in Riga, and I enjoy a good journey home. Let's meet again. Thank you very much at the plenary meeting.